The sky over the quiet forest was clear just moments before. Birds flew lazily, and the trees stood still under the orange evening sun. Everything was peaceful. But then, a strange flash of light cut across the sky like a silent scream. It wasn't a shooting star. It was something else. Something fast, controlled, and glowing faint blue at the edges. People from the nearby town noticed it. Some thought it was a comet, others said it might be a secret plane. But no one expected the truth. Deep in the forest, the object landed. Not with a loud crash, but with a soft, strange thump, almost like it was trying not to be noticed. Trees bent, leaves flew into the air, and the birds flew off in panic. A small pod, silver and smooth, lay at the center of a shallow crater. It hissed slightly as steam escaped from its sides. Then, the door opened. Out came Kale, not a human, but not frightening either. He stood tall but leaned forward slightly, one hand gripping his side. His skin was smooth and pale blue, almost blending with the light of the evening sky. He wasn't here to harm anyone. In fact, Kale was a field medic, trained on many worlds to heal and protect. But Kale wasn't okay. His pod had been hit by debris during his travel. He had no time to fix it. His landing was rough and his body felt strange. Something was wrong. He looked down at his lower right appendage, a limb not unlike a leg but with more flexibility and fine motor movement. It was swollen. A soft bulge had formed just above the joint, pulsing slightly, filled with some kind of fluid. Kyle sat under a tree and activated his scanner. It beeped and whirred, trying to identify the problem. But Earth's atmosphere confused it. Unknown. Inflammation detected, the scanner said in a robotic voice. Advise medical review, risk level, moderate. He touched the swollen area gently and winced. The pressure felt wrong, like it was building from inside. He paused. Should he touch it again? Should he open it? He wasn't sure. His training told him never to interfere with unfamiliar symptoms unless absolutely necessary. Kyle looked around. The trees were tall and old. The plants were green and lush. This place was full of life, but none of it was familiar. He scanned a few insects, crawling on the ground. One looked a bit like something from his home planet, but it didn't help. This was all new. Time was passing slowly, and Kale's head began to feel light, maybe from the gravity, maybe from the pressure in his limb. His suit was damaged, and oxygen levels were slightly off. He tried to stay calm. Kyle was trained for emergencies. He had treated broken limbs, strange diseases, even poisonous bites on alien worlds. But this, being the patient on an unknown planet, was something he had never expected. He remembered a phrase from his mentor back home. When you're not sure if it's dangerous, don't touch. But if it keeps growing, you'll have to choose. Kyle tried standing again, but the limb was stiff. He leaned against a tree and took a deep breath. His species didn't breathe exactly like humans, but the action still helped. He looked up at the sky, which was now turning dark blue. Stars were beginning to show. He checked the swelling again. It had grown larger in just 20 minutes. The skin over it looked stretched and thin. There was a faint glowing vein under the surface, pulsing like a warning light. Kale sighed. He didn't know how long he could stay hidden. His emergency beacon had been damaged, and his communications weren't working. He was truly alone, but he couldn't risk touching the swollen area yet, not without more data, not without knowing if it would make things worse. He limped a few steps and found a quiet spot behind a thick bush. He scanned the area for safety and decided to rest. He sat down again, carefully adjusting his limb to avoid pressure. The forest was calm again. Crickets chirped softly. A few night birds called in the distance. It was peaceful, almost too peaceful for someone so confused and uncertain. Kale looked down at the swelling one more time. It seemed to shimmer in the moonlight, the fluid inside shifting slowly. He reached out, his 3 fingers hovering just above the skin. "It's swollen," he whispered in his own language. "Should I touch it?" His fingers trembled slightly, but he stopped himself. Not yet, not until he was sure. Somewhere in the distance, a twig snapped. Kale quickly turned off his scanner light and stayed still. Someone, or something, was moving through the forest. Kale didn't move. His breath slowed. He stayed completely still, listening carefully. Something was definitely out there. The sound had come from behind the trees, not too far away. Another twig snapped. Then some dry leaves crunched under. Soft steps. He adjusted the setting on his visual scanner. It switched to heat mode. A warm shape appeared between the trees. Not too large, not too small. It looked like a human. Kyle's heart rate increased slightly. He had studied humans during training, but only from pictures and files. He had never expected to meet one face-to-face, especially not like this. The high figure came closer. Kyle lowered his body, trying to stay hidden. But as the figure passed near the bush, Kyle's scanner made a soft beeping sound. It was low, but in the silent forest, it stood out. The human stopped. "Hello?" A voice called. Out. It was soft and female. Kyle held his breath. The human came closer, pushing through the bushes carefully. A flashlight cut through the darkness, and the light fell on Kale's silver shoulder. The woman gasped and stepped back. Kale slowly turned around and raised his hands, not to scare her, but to show he meant no harm. He didn't have any weapons. He was just a traveler, a very lost one. The woman stood frozen, eyes wide. She was in her late 20s, wearing a hiking jacket and a small backpack. Her brown hair was tied back, and a flashlight shook slightly in her hand. But she didn't. "Run!" Kale activated his voice translator. It buzzed, blinked, and then spoke in a flat, mechanical tone. "Please, help, pain, hurt, no danger, friend." The woman stared. Her mouth opened slightly. She looked at Kyle's swollen limb, glowing faintly under the edge of his suit. Her eyes widened again. Are you real?" she whispered. Kale didn't answer the question. He simply nodded and pointed to his leg. The swelling had gotten worse. The skin was tight and shiny. It was changing color. The woman stepped forward slowly, watching his every move. "My name is Lara," she said. "I'm a nurse. I help people. I think you need help." Kyle gave a soft sound of relief. He didn't know what nurse meant in her language exactly, but from her actions and tone, he understood she was some kind of healer. That was good. That was exactly what he needed. Lara slowly knelt down a few feet away. She didn't touch him, not yet. She just looked at the swollen area carefully. "Is it broken?" she asked. Kyle shook his head and made a gesture to show swelling. The translator struggled to keep up, but managed to say, "Not broken, expanding, pressure, wrong inside." She frowned and looked closer. "It's hot," she said, noticing the faint heat radiating from the bulge. "Swelling like that can be dangerous." He nodded slowly. "Okay," she said, standing up. "My cabin is not far. It's quiet and safe. I have a first aid kit, and maybe we can figure this out together." Kyle hesitated. Should he go? He didn't know this human, but his own knowledge wasn't helping him right now, and he didn't want to wait until the situation got worse. He couldn't treat himself here in the forest. He needed tools. He needed help. He nodded again. Lara motioned for him to follow. She walked ahead, slowly and carefully, glancing back to check if he was okay. Kale limped after her, favoring his injured limb. Each step made the swelling throb slightly. They didn't talk much as they walked through the trees. Lara was quiet, trying to stay calm. Kale was focused on not falling. The forest became darker, but soon the trees opened up to a small clearing. A wooden cabin stood in the middle, lights glowing warmly from inside. Lara opened the door and let Kyle inside. She quickly closed the curtains and locked the door behind her. Kyle looked around. The place was cozy and smelled of wood and herbs. There were books on the shelves and a kettle still warm on the stove. "Sit here," she said, pointing to a padded bench. Kyle obeyed, gently lowering himself. His leg pulsed again. He winced but stayed silent. Lara opened a drawer and pulled out a small kit. It wasn't much. Just some bandages, scissors, gloves, a thermometer, and disinfectant. She looked at him. "I don't know what you are exactly," she said, "but pain and swelling are the same for almost every living thing. I'll do my best." Kale's translator blinked, then spoke. "Understand. Thank you. Trust." That made her pause. She gave a small smile and pulled on the gloves. She moved slowly, not wanting to cause harm. When her hands got close to the swollen area, Kyle's sensors flared. "Warning," his device said. "Direct contact may cause neural response." Lara froze. "I was about to touch it," she said softly. "But it might hurt you more." Kyle took a deep breath. The translator clicked, then said, "Touch. Unknown risk. But wait. Worse." Lara nodded slowly. She moved her hands back. "All right. Then we won't touch it yet," she said. "Let's figure out what it is first." She opened her laptop and pulled up diagrams of human injuries, hematomas, abscesses, swelling due to pressure. She pointed at the images and then at his limb. "Is it like this?" Kale looked at the photos, comparing the shapes and texture. He pointed at one that seemed close. His translator said, "Yes. Inside fluid. Trapped." She leaned back, thinking. "Okay, then maybe it's not a wound. Maybe your body is reacting to something. Could be gravity or air pressure or even bacteria. Your system isn't used to Earth." Kale nodded again. That made sense. Lara stood stretched, then walked over to make some tea. She offered him a cup, then realized he might not drink the same way. Kale shook his head politely. He sat there in silence, thinking. The swelling was still there, but maybe, just maybe, he wasn't alone anymore. And maybe now someone knew what question to ask. Lara looked at him and said carefully, "It's swollen. Should I touch it?" Kale looked down, then up at her. Not yet, but soon. The night outside the cabin was calm. Wind moved through the trees like a soft whisper. Inside, the light above Kale flickered slightly as he sat on the bench, looking at his swollen leg. The pressure was growing slower now, but it was still there. He could feel it, tight, warm, pulsing. It was as if something inside him didn't belong, but he didn't know how to remove it. Lara sat beside him with her laptop open, flipping through medical diagrams and articles. Her hands moved quickly, but her face showed concern. She was trying her best to understand what was going on. Still, she had never treated anyone or anything like Kale before. "I wish I knew more about how your body works," she said softly. Kale turned toward her, his translator blinking to life. "Same wish. Your world, new. Not in training files. Scanner, confused." She looked at his scanner, which was small and clipped to the side of his suit. It displayed strange symbols and lights she couldn't understand. Still, she leaned closer and asked, "Can I see the inside of your leg? Maybe a scan or image?" Kyle nodded and pressed a few buttons on the device. A faint beam of light projected into the air, forming a soft blue image in 3D. It showed a rounded pocket under the skin, filled with light-colored fluid. Several thin lines wrapped around it like tiny wires or veins. Lara stared at the floating image in amazement. "That's incredible," she whispered. "It looks a little like a hematoma. We get that too when blood gathers under the skin." Kale tapped the image, making it spin slowly. "Fluid, not blood," the translator said. "But same shape, same pressure. Dangerous if grows more." Lara nodded, then opened her medical bag. "I don't have anything strong here, just basic supplies. I think we need to lower the pressure, but I don't want to hurt you. I don't even know if your skin reacts like ours." Kyle pointed to the image again. A small symbol blinked red near the center of the swelling. "Pain point," he said through the translator. "Near nerves. One mistake. Shock." She leaned back, thinking carefully. "Then we need to be gentle. No cutting, no needles. We try something else first." She walked over to her small fridge and pulled out a cold gel pack. It was meant for sore muscles or twisted ankles. She wrapped it in a soft cloth and brought it back. "This helps with swelling," she explained. "Maybe it will work for you too." Kyle looked unsure but nodded. She slowly moved the cloth-wrapped gel near, his leg checking for any reaction. Kyle's scanner stayed silent. No warnings. She gently placed it over the swollen area, avoiding direct pressure. Kyle flinched slightly but didn't pull away. The coolness felt strange but not painful. "Okay," she said. "Let's leave it there for a while. Maybe it will reduce the swelling." They sat in silence for several minutes. Lara sipped some tea while Kyle stared at the 3D scan. The swelling looked less active now, but it was hard to tell for sure. He closed the image and sighed. "My tools. Not enough," he said. Lara turned to him. "What kind of tools do you need?" Kale tapped his chest gently. "Medical kit. Lost in crash. Broken in forest." She thought for a moment. "Is it safe to go back and look for it?" He shook his head. "Too dark. Too far. Leg. Not strong." Lara stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the forest was still and silent. She turned back. "Then we'll do what we can here." Kyle felt a rush of something warm. Not heat, emotion. Her kindness, her calm voice, her steady hands. It all reminded him of home, of others. He had healed, and of the times he had been unsure, yet still chosen to help. Now, someone else was doing that for him. Lara brought out a small notebook and started sketching. She drew Kale's leg, the swelling and possible treatments. She wasn't guessing blindly. She was trying to learn. "I think it's a build-up," she said finally. "Something your body is holding in, maybe to protect you, but if it doesn't release, it could press on your nerves or stop movement completely." Kale's translator replied. "Agreed, but release must be slow, or body may panic." She nodded. "Then maybe we try a compression method, something soft to guide the fluid back." He tilted his head slightly. "Explain." She picked up an elastic bandage and gently wrapped it around a soft pillow. "We don't press the swelling directly. We wrap it nearby gently so it encourages the fluid to move, slowly, naturally." Kale listened carefully. It made sense. "Try," he said. Lara smiled gently and moved forward. She worked slowly, carefully wrapping a soft band just above the swollen area. Not tight, just firm enough to offer support. Kyle winced once but didn't stop her. "Okay," she said. "We'll check again in 10 minutes." They waited again. Kale's scanner blinked softly. The red warning light turned orange. Slight improvement. Kyle looked at her with wide eyes. "Better. I feel clearer." Lara's face lit up. "It's working." Kyle leaned back slightly, feeling a little less pressure now. His leg still ached, but it was manageable. He looked around the cabin, books, plants, the warm light of the lamp, and felt something he hadn't expected to feel on this planet. Safety. You help, he said. More than you know. Lara smiled. I didn't expect to meet someone like you out there, but I'm glad I did. The moment was quiet, peaceful. Two strangers from different worlds sitting together, learning, trusting. Kyle looked down at the bandage and the swelling beneath it. It still needed care. But now he wasn't facing it alone. And maybe, just maybe, the worst part was over. The hours passed slowly, but the night didn't feel long. Lara kept checking on Kale every few minutes, adjusting the soft wrap on his swollen limb. The cool gel pack had done some good, and the gentle pressure from the bandage seemed to help, even more. Kale was still in pain, but it wasn't sharp now. It was dull, steady, something he could handle. Lara sat nearby with a notepad in her lap, making small sketches of his anatomy based on what she had seen from the scan. She tried to understand how his body worked, comparing it to human systems. Blood vessels, fluid paths, soft tissue, it was different but not completely unfamiliar. Kale watched her work. Her focus reminded him of medics on his home world. They also had this quiet strength, the kind that worked with care, not force. He felt calm with her. Even though they came from different worlds, something about her felt close. Suddenly, his scanner made a soft chime. He looked down. A green light flashed on the side of the device. He tapped it gently and a small message appeared. Stabilization detected. Pressure decreasing. Kyle's eyes lit up slightly. Better, he said through the translator. Fluid moving, danger lower. Lara smiled, truly relieved. That's good news. We're not done yet, but we're getting there. Kale nodded slowly. Help came at right time. She looked at him for a moment, then said, I think we're helping each other. Kale tilted his head. How? Lara leaned back in her chair. Well, I've worked in hospitals and clinics for years, but I've never seen anything like this. You're teaching me new things, how to think differently, how to stay calm when I don't understand something. You're reminding me why I became a nurse in the first place. Kyle blinked slowly. Healing is shared. Yes, she said softly. It goes both ways. For a while they sat in silence, listening to the gentle ticking of a clock on the wall. Then Kale's scanner beeped again. This time, a blue light flashed. He tapped the screen, and a new message appeared. System beacon reconnected. Emergency signal restored. Retrieval pending. Kyle's body stiffened. He looked up at Lara. What is it? She asked. Ship. Coming, the translator said. My people. Found signal. Lara's face froze. You're leaving? Soon, Kale replied. She stood up and walked toward the window. Outside, the forest was still dark, but above the trees the stars shone brightly. Somewhere out there, help was on the way. That should have made her happy. But instead, she felt something else. I don't know why, but I thought maybe you'd be here a little longer, she said quietly. Kyle stood slowly, his legs still, felt weak, but he could move better now. He walked to the window beside her and looked up at the stars. His hand gently tapped his suit near the swollen area, now smaller and less painful. I didn't plan to stay, he said. But I'm glad I did. She smiled, but there was a bit of sadness in her eyes. Suddenly, Kale turned toward the small table where his tools were placed. He picked up a memory crystal, a smooth glass-like object about the size of a coin. He pressed a symbol on its surface. A soft light glowed within it. He handed it to Lara. She looked down at the object, confused. What is this? Memory crystal, the translator said. It holds images, sounds, thoughts, from me, for you. Lara took it in her hands carefully. It felt warm. Are you sure I can have this? Kyle nodded. It will help you remember and learn. If others come, maybe you help again. She tucked it into her jacket pocket with care. Thank you. I'll protect it. Kale looked around the cabin one last time. The wooden shelves, the soft light, the teacup on the table. It was also different from what he knew, but it had become familiar in a short time. Time, short, he said, but meaning, large. Lara laughed softly. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. Suddenly a light flickered outside. Not from the stars, but from above. A quiet, low hum began to rise in the sky. Kyle turned toward the door. They're here, he said. Lara followed him outside. Over the trees, a soft blue shape hovered in the sky. It was smooth and silent, shaped like a large leaf. A beam of light moved gently across the forest floor, searching. Then it stopped on Kyle. He took a slow breath. His time here was ending. Lara looked up at the ship, then back at him. Will I ever see you again? Kyle didn't answer right away. He looked at her carefully, then pressed a button on his translator. Maybe not with eyes, it said, but with heart. Always. Lara smiled, and a tear slid quietly down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. Kale turned and stepped into the beam. His body rose gently into the air. The light wrapped around him, lifting him slowly toward the ship. He didn't wave. He simply looked down at her, eyes calm, grateful. The ship rose higher, then vanished into the stars without a sound. Lara stood there in the clearing, alone now, holding the memory crystal close. The forest returned to silence. The stars above blinked softly as if nothing had happened, but something had. After Kale disappeared into the night sky, Lara stood alone in the quiet forest clearing. The soft glow of the stars above made the darkness less frightening. She held the small memory crystal tightly in her hand. It felt warm and alive, like it was carrying a secret. Lara didn't know what to do next. Her heart was full of mixed feelings, wonder, sadness, and a strange hope. She had met someone who was not from this world, someone who needed help and trusted her. That was a story no one would believe. The next morning, Lara returned to her cabin. The peacefulness of the forest felt different now. It was the same forest, but she saw it with new eyes. Every bird, every leaf, every sound seemed more alive. She sat at her small table and looked at the memory crystal again. With careful fingers, she pressed the symbol on its surface. Soft lights and images began to glow inside. She saw flashes of Kale's journey, his pod falling through the sky, the strange forest from his view, and the swelling on his leg. She heard sounds too, his breathing, his soft voice through the translator, even the quiet beep of his scanner. But the most powerful part was the message at the end. Kale's voice spoke clearly from the crystal. The question you asked, whether to touch it, was more than about the swelling. It was about fear and trust. You chose to trust, and because of that I survived. Your kindness saved me. Lara held the crystal close to her heart. She felt a warmth spreading inside her, a feeling she couldn't explain but knew was real. She knew this memory was hers now, and she would protect it forever. Days passed, but Lara didn't tell anyone what had happened. How could she? The story sounded too strange, like a dream or a tale from a science fiction book. Instead, she went back to her work, helping people in her town as a nurse. But something inside her had changed. Every time she looked at the sky at night, she wondered if Kale was still out there somewhere. Was he safe? Did he remember her? The memory crystal reminded her of the bond they shared, even if it was brief. One afternoon, while helping a young patient at the clinic, Lara noticed something new. She felt more patient, more understanding, and more calm in difficult moments. She smiled quietly to herself, thinking maybe Kale's visit had taught her more than she realized. The forest nearby stayed peaceful, but Lara's heart held a secret, one of trust, hope, and a connection beyond worlds. She understood now that sometimes the hardest questions don't have easy answers. Sometimes you have to take a risk, trust someone, and that trust can save a life. Years later, when Lara told the story, carefully, softly, and only to those she trusted, she always ended with the same words. It's swollen. Should I touch it? That question changed everything, and the answer was yes, because sometimes healing starts with a simple touch.